Yeah, hi there. These comments are for, I'm just going to use your initials J, and you submitted a paper for me online, and I'm going to go ahead and do some correction of your paper right now, and I will upload this to YouTube at some point. Alright, so first of all, let's take a look at the question. So the question is, some people think government should spend as much money as possible exploring outer space. Other people disagree and think government should spend this money for basic needs on Earth. Which of these two opinions do you agree with? Use reasons and details to support your answer. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go ahead and combine these first two sentences. You can say, learning should be endless, and as a human one, I don't think that works very better. What if you said this? As humans, we should keep exploring. I don't think you have to say keep expanding because you've implied that. We should keep exploring and expanding our horizons. Okay, so as we go, I will put some codes in here that you can look at later on. I'm going to send you a revision symbol checklist, and you can learn a little bit more about what that means as you click on those. And the other one is what's called a point of view. It's probably more appropriate here instead of looking at one. And even when you say one and then you say his, I think it's probably a little too formal there. So we should keep exploring, expanding our horizons. However, when it comes to, I'm going to say the question, and then you want to say here whether I'm going to make this plural, whether governments should spend more money exploring outer space, or whether instead of spend, you might use the word allocate money for basic needs on Earth. So this is what we call a shift, a sentence shift. You're kind of shifting from what's called direct speech to indirect speech, and if you're no longer quoting the sentence, then you want to change it to what's called whether. So when it comes to the question of whether government should spend more money exploring outer space or whether they should allocate more money for basic needs on Earth. And this is actually a fragment. So here, let's see. Put a comma here. Instead of everybody, which is singular, and then you go to there, that creates what's called a pronoun agreement issue. And you can read more about that by clicking on the links in the checklist I'm sending you. You can just say people have their own opinions. Let's look at this previous sentence too. I want to check to make sure you're using the right word here. I don't know how ever works there, because you're not really introducing an opposite idea. You're saying in the previous sentence is that we should keep exploring and expanding our horizons. And then you're saying that people have opinions on whether the government should spend money exploring outer space or allocating more money for our basic needs. And then maybe change this. However, strongly believe and that second idea, such as social and environmental issues, I'm going to say here, however, the government should focus on solving the social and environmental issues There we go. All right, let's take a look at this paragraph one more time. So I think we got the paragraph a little bit more focused, and when we got to your thesis, I combined those last two sentences so you wouldn't have a sentence fragment. So you say, learning should be endless, and as humans, we should keep exploring and expanding our horizons. I'm going to go ahead and go back to what you said. I think it'll work. I'm going to use a different word here. Nonetheless, same thing as however. When it comes to the question whether government should spend more money exploring outer space or whether they should allocate more money for basic needs on Earth, people have their own opinions. However, the government should focus on solving the social and environmental issues on Earth first before earmarking funds for space exploration. Okay, so here I'm going to put these at the end of your essay so you can see these symbols and you can use my guide to figure out, if you want to learn in more detail, what these things are. Okay, let's go to your next paragraph. So we're making some progress. Okay, your next paragraph. We are in the 21st century, have reached to the moon, but there are still people in many parts of the world who sleep hungry at night. Okay, so you're missing here. You actually don't have a topic sentence. You want to create a label for the paragraph to give it a purpose, and then you get to the more specific ideas. The only thing you need to do, it's very easy, is you need to just take the idea social and restate the purpose of your writing right in the beginning, and then get to this, what you just said. So you can say, I think you have two reasons, right? Okay, so I think you might be trying to do too many different things in this paragraph. Let's see what we have. Well, you're using the idea of social issues, right? Such as hunger, mortality, Yeah, so I'm going to say that I think in this paragraph you're trying to do too many different things. If you bring up all these specific points, poverty, high mortality, illiteracy, hunger, if you bring up all these different ideas, then you need to develop these different points. I'm going to just focus on your first key point, hunger. Give you more of a limited focus here. As you say, first of all, since social issues such as hunger exist in many parts of the world, these governments should designate additional funds to solve this problem. So we are in the 21st century. I'd probably say here, and have reached the moon. But there are still people in many parts of the world who sleep hungry at night. So what we're going to try to do here is to try to just take that one idea and then write 100 words in that particular area. So that way you're showing some depth and progression to your ideas. have here. So, for example, in Ethiopia, thousands of children starve every year, so governments in developed countries such as the United States, Canada, Russia, China, and so on can reduce their expenditures between 30 to 50% in space exploration, which will free up additional money to buy food and water for this and other developing countries, you might say, facing similar problems. And you might say, fact, in addition to sending food and water to the people in these starving countries, governments can spend money on teaching So I think we have it. So let's check and see how many words we have here. Basically, you want to develop your paragraphs to between about 50 and 100 words. So this is probably about all we need here. So what I was trying to show you here is it's not how much you say, but it's what you say. It's how you develop the points that you're trying to say, and that shows some depth to the writing. So instead of talking about all these ideas and then not really developing anything in particular detail, I just focused on one of your points and just really developed that one idea. Alright, let's take a look at your next paragraph here. So you see the whole world is facing serious threat of climate change. See, the problem is you're framing your topic sentence more as a fact, but it doesn't do much to really develop the argument you're trying to make. So if you go back to your thesis and you look at what you've said there, you're saying the government should focus on solving social and environmental issues on Earth first before earmarking funds for space exploration. So you're moving to the environmental issue. So then we might say, kind of repeat our say this. So this is one thing that you can do, I think, that will definitely change the writing, because what you do in your topic sentence will have an effect on controlling the tone in the rest of your paragraph. So if you start off with a factual type topic sentence, then you typically create more of a factual tone. But that's not what you're trying to do. You're trying to actually make an argument here, right? So you say, second of all, in addition to solving the social problem of hunger, instead of spending more money on space exploration, government should increase funding to help solve environmental issues such as a serious threat of climate change. And I think this doesn't really, what you're saying here, I don't think really helps to, is it man-made or natural phenomena is debatable for some. So I'm going to say not even worry about that. Also, space junk, a byproduct of all government-funded expeditions to go to outer space, is horrifying environmental issue. I would probably just get rid of that. That's kind of a whole nother idea that I don't think you want to deal with in this paragraph, because you want to focus. You're focusing on climate change, right? So just keep everything focused around that idea. Try not to go in different directions, especially in the middle of your paragraph, because then you end up not having paragraph unity. So I'm going to get rid of that. I don't think that's going to work that very well either. So you're trying to cover, you're trying to talk about too many different things. But the carbon footprint thing, I think you have something with that. This is where you want to go with this. You can say you can say governments can offer maybe tax breaks for its citizens How about those citizens who reduce their carbon footprints? So again, you have to get a little more specific than what you're getting. Okay, I think this helps develop the idea. So we say, second of all, in addition to solving the social problem of hunger, instead of spending more money on space exploration, government should increase funding to help solve environmental issues such as a serious threat of climate change. For example, governments can offer tax breaks for those citizens who reduce their carbon footprints. In fact, if citizens of China, for example, know that they will pay lower taxes after buying hybrid cars such as a Toyota Prius, they may be more encouraged to buy these environmentally friendly automobiles. So, of course, if more drivers use these types of cars, there will be fewer harmful emissions into the atmosphere. So you see here, many governments have taken the initiative to address this issue, which is a ray of hope. But I believe we still have a long way to go. Okay, this idea, I'm not sure if we need it. Let's see how we're doing with the paragraph. So we're good. We got about 135 words here. Okay, we're good there. Then we get to the final paragraph here. I'm going to say here social, and to restate the key points of your thesis here. So you have these social and environmental issues are serious enough to demand immediate attention and actions from our governments. Then you can just say, therefore, exploring outer space. The outer world, we don't usually say it like that. So exploring outer space can wait. The government should definitely focus on the issues on Earth first. All right, let's take a look at the paper one more time, see how we're doing. And let's get a word count. I think we're still in pretty good shape. So overall we have 388 words. Which I think should be okay. That should be good enough. As long as you're typically over about 350, you're pretty good. So a lot of the changes that I've made here, as you saw, I had to make some changes in your topic sentences in the sense that they didn't really make any arguments, so I framed them better so they directly connected back to the argument you're making in your thesis. I've also made a few language use changes, right? So learning should be endless, and as humans, we should keep exploring and expanding our horizons. Nonetheless, when it comes to the question of whether governments should spend more money exploring outer space or whether they should allocate money for basic needs on Earth, people have their own opinions. However, the government should focus on solving the social and environmental issues on Earth first before earmarking funds for space exploration. First of all, since social issues such as hunger exist in many parts of the world, these governments should designate additional funds to solve this problem. We are in the 21st century and have reached the moon, but there are still people in many parts of the world who sleep hungry at night. How about this? This is a little bit wordy. You can just say, but people in many parts of the world still sleep hungry at night. For example, in Ethiopia, thousands of children starve every year, so governments in developed countries such as the United States, Canada, Russia, China, and so on can reduce their expenditures between 30 to 50% on space exploration, which will free up additional money to buy food and water for this and other developing countries facing similar problems. You have, in fact, in addition to sending food and water to the people in these starving countries, governments can spend money on teaching the people in these countries probably don't even need to say that. It implies that. So governments can spend money on teaching the people eco-friendly agricultural techniques to help them become self-sufficient. So then we have our transition. Second of all, in addition to solving the social problem of hunger, instead of spending more money on space exploration, government should increase funding to help solve environmental issues such as the serious threat of climate change. For example, see, this is where you're weak right now. You're not getting to the specifics. You're not getting to what I call concrete details. The more specific you get in the body paragraphs, the stronger the argument is that you're making. So you see, for example, governments can offer tax breaks for those citizens who reduce their carbon footprints. In fact, if citizens of China, for example, know that they will pay lower taxes after buying hybrid cars, such as a Toyota Prius, they may be more encouraged to buy these environmentally friendly automobiles. Of course, if more drivers use these types of cars, there will be fewer harmful emissions in the atmosphere. Many governments have taken the initiative to address this issue. How about this word? Indeed. Many governments have taken the initiative to address this issue, which is a ray of hope, but I believe that we still have a long way to go. These social and environmental issues are serious enough to demand immediate attention and actions from our governments. Therefore, exploring outer space can wait because the government should definitely focus on the issues on Earth first. So here are some of the problems that you're having right now. Even what's called using exact language, you can click on the link there to understand more about that. So you're not very precise in some of the words you're using, and you have a tendency to go in different directions without really developing any issue in really specific details. So I got rid of a lot of your ideas and focused really around just one key point for each of those body paragraphs, and then I showed you how you can spend more time developing, expanding, giving examples and things to help illustrate that one idea. So a more limited focus, I think, with more appropriate, relevant, supporting detail, that's going to have an effect on giving your writing more depth and complexity of thought, and ultimately strengthening the argument that you're trying to make. So the other question is, what would this actually score on the TOEFL IBT writing exam? So I would probably put you, I mean, I'm not sure what my TA scored you, but you're probably looking at about 2.5 to 3.0 out of 5. So my best guess is you're probably looking at, I don't know, anywhere from maybe 17 to 18 points to maybe 21 points out of 30 on the writing. So what I've done in this particular video is to show you how you can improve your writing, and particularly you can be more specific in what you say in those body paragraphs. I think that's the best way that you can really, I think, get a much better score on the TOEFL IBT independent writing task.